Hello everybody and welcome back to Books at 60. Well, what a week I've had. You're not going to believe this. I had such a fabulous weekend, watch this space because there'll be more about that I didn't pick up a book the whole weekend. My husband can't believe it. He reckons it's the first time in the 40 years we've been together that he's ever seen me without a book in my hand. Nonetheless, thank heavens we have all those fabulous reviewers out there who write reviews for you for Starts at 60 because we managed to keep up the book content. And the first of these was a really unusual little mystery story. Now, the name Graham Norton, you're probably thinking, where do I know that name from? Well, in fact, he's that mad comedian with the very acerbic wit that you might see in his TV shows. He interviews people, not always very seriously, certainly asks questions that are somewhat off the bat, and he has a chair where poor little innocent guests get to start telling their story, only to get tipped out if he doesn't like the story. What I didn't know about Graham is that he is a very accomplished writer. And this week we have a review for you of another of his books called Holding. Such an interesting story. Poor old P.J. Collins, Sergeant Collins. He's just a man who never quite became the man he thought he was going to be. Not that he's always been overweight like he is now, but his mother's now an alcoholic, and the woman that he's quite keen on feels that her life's been a total waste. So when some human remains are found, they call in somebody with a bit more knowledge than poor old PJ. But in fact, it's PJ who sets the running. It's PJ who struggles to solve this genuine case for the first time in his life. In doing so, he unearths the community's worth of anger and resentment. Such a good book. I do hope you'll enjoy reading Holding by Graham Norton. So, tell me, how much do you know about James Dixon Swan? Never heard of it? Am I being deafened by silence? Would you believe that was the name that Jimmy Barnes wore at birth? What a life this man has had. Now, you might have had the great pleasure, as did I, of seeing Jimmy interviewed by Starts at 60, and Ian Skippen did the interview. He was very, very entertaining, and this is the book they were actually talking about. It's full of stories of his life, not always an easy life by a long shot, but it was a life that allowed them to eventually find their dignity. I am, about halfway through, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not a Barnesy fan. Oh dear, no, please, no correspondence. But that's just not my type of music. However, I always admire somebody who gets out there and does what they do and does it well. Consequently, I'm thoroughly enjoying reading this Working Class Boy by Jimmy Barnes. Incidentally, did you see Jimmy Barnes when he was painted by Ando? I do wish the ABC would bring that program back. I love seeing all those people having their portraits done, and this was such an interesting interview. He's an interesting person, even for somebody who doesn't, I'm sorry to admit, enjoy his music. Now, I don't actually have the book in my hand this week, but we have a really interesting autobiography. And this one is by Michael Clarke. Now, just like Barnesy's music, I'm not actually a cricket tragic. However, I am rather attracted many times by the theatre that a lot of sport entails. And some of the ongoing feuds that started out when Michael Clarke was made captain of the Australian team really make quite fascinating reading. The thing is that this time, this isn't a biography. It isn't what someone else thinks about Michael Clarke. It isn't somebody else taking a pot shot at his relationships with other cricketers, with women. It's Michael. Michael, all alone, all on his own, telling you his story, his way. You don't have to be a cricket tragic to actually enjoy another story of a young man who pretty well did things his way and achieved what he did despite the knockers. Now, the Monday before last, we did a very interesting, to me, interview with Paul Ham. Paul wrote the, I suppose one could say, definitive work on Passchendaele, Requiem for Doomed Youth. Paul was so passionate about his subject, and I was so thrilled to see the number of you who not only remarked about the book, but told your own story of your family members who were actually at Passchendaele. The book gave me moments when I was very misty-eyed, and so did your comments. So in association with the publishers, I am very thrilled to have a copy of Paul Ham's book, Passchendaele, Requiem for Doomed Youth, available as a prize. We will put the competition over on the Facebook page, Books at Starts at 60. And the question that we're going to ask is, in which war and on what battlefields was the Battle of Passchendaele fought? Unfortunately, I will only have one copy available, and the prize will go to the person who in 25 words or less can answer the question, where was the Battle of Passchendaele? In which war? Where were the fields? Thank you so much for joining me yet again on Books at Starts at 60. If you'd like to write to me, if you'd like to make any comments, if you'd like to make any suggestions, please send an email to books@startsatsixty.com. I promise I'll answer you and look forward to seeing you again next week.